I think mine's pretty simple. I've got planning and code enforcement. Planning, we take care of any new development proposals that come in. Anybody from looking to do a shed in their backyard to Wild Wings out on 4th, they have to come through us, and we take them through the whole planning and development process and get them through all of that. Any of the boards that they have to go to, and then code enforcement. Obviously, that's taking care of, property code violations, a lot of property maintenance stuff. That's a pretty visible service that we're providing with the city. And right now, with it being the summer, our major activity is grass and weed enforcement. So we're taking care of a lot of mowings, and that's keeping all of the code enforcement officers busy. And just with people being outside and doing more things, we've had just a lot of more random type violations, a lot of RV storage questions. I know we're going to be discussing that in a couple weeks, so that keeps us pretty busy. Our budget is pretty flat from last year. We haven't really had any changes. Really, the only noticeable change was just we shuffled in code enforcement. Previously, we'd had, for some reason, 2 different funds that our mowing expenses came out of, and that just made it a little bit messy with how we coded everything, but just got that all combined into one fund at the same amount just to make it a little bit easier for our processing. But really, that's the only thing we changed around. So
you still have 3 code enforcement?
We've got 3 code enforcement officers, yes. And 2 administrative staff, one of which is part-time, and then our community development person who handles all of the CDBG grant work and does the minor home repair and first-time home buyers, that type of stuff.
Okay. Any questions?
I do. On code enforcement, for housing that we do, an example, the properties that we just reviewed that are on the list, how bad those properties are. And lately we've been looking at some that they are salvageable, they get on the list, but what I would really like to focus on a couple of those have been so neglected for so many years. You look at that and you wonder, how did not that make an earlier list on that? But is there any way, that we, when we rate if a street or a sidewalk needs to be repaired, we give it like a rating or something like that? I really would like to focus on more, some of them that are really, really derelict, that have had water and vacancy for like 10 years, a couple of those were on, that type of thing. Is there any way that, that we can maybe focus or concentrate our efforts a little bit more targeted like that?
We were actually just talking about that this morning in our staff meeting. A lot of the problem that we run into is when we try to enforce on those types of properties, either they're vacant and it's an out-of-town property owner who just is not involved and they blow off court dates and that type of thing, or it's someone who just truly does not have any money to a lot of times put food on the table, let alone make any improvements to their home. And so when we get in situations with code enforcement making contact and writing them up, and our process is to, if we write someone up and they don't abate it, then we file at municipal court. And so with those situations, if we get to municipal court and it's something where the owner truly doesn't have the funds to take care of something, we have very limited funds in our CDBG program to help out. We've got a cap of $5,000 per property, and that really doesn't go too far. And so if it's something where they cannot abate it, then it'll get to the point where the judge authorizes the city to abate, and then it comes back on the city, and we've got the authorization to correct the problem, but then not the money to do it. So it's a little bit tough to handle those types of situations, and that's something that we do struggle with. And like I said this morning, we were actually brainstorming, trying to figure out maybe better ways to allocate or target our funds that we do have with CDBG.
I see they're going down too.
And that's all based on HUD. We make our application and they determine our level, and for pretty much all the CDBG recipients, they have been going down.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, what, probably for me to ask is, because we're looking at those, but then like I said, I was driving by, and it's a property, and it is, the roof that we saw where you can tell it's just over years, it's just caving in, and it was a hole. Well, now it's, falling off the building. That's not a vacant property. I walk my dog, I used to walk my dog by there all the time. And you really hate, you're like, why are they not, fixing that without really knowing what their circumstances are? And so then I said, well, maybe we should really look at, have the utilities been turned off? And we had some of those that were like in excess of, 10 years and stuff like that. So, and is it, that, setting aside, maybe looking at community development block grant where we could expand the help we do or something like that?
Sure. That's something that we would like to do. And there's also the problem too, sometimes our code enforcement officers will encounter a property owner that is living in a property and who clearly needs help making repairs to their house. And so we'll offer that help and try to get them the applications and the contacts that they need and let them know what we have. And if some people just aren't interested in help from the city.
It takes some work too. They have to get their own quotes.
Yeah.
They have to.
I know.
They've got to have
It takes some work
homeowners
to get
they've got to have
free money,
homeowners
which is-
insurance, and
That
there
was
are a
the-
number
that-
of
I know,
people that
that's-
to
don't.
do when we
So,
had the
yeah.
community development
Yeah.
corporation is a lot of what I did was go help people fill those out, those
Yeah.
forms out, because it is intimidating for especially elderly people that
Yeah.
Sure.
don't know what to do, and then I helped
Yeah.
them through that. But
And we absolutely try and help them as much as we can,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if they don't want to come in and
Yeah.
let us help them,
well, I know that's it. You
we
got to go to
can't
their house.
force
I mean, that
them.
was
Yeah,
what they
sure.
were calling me. I was going to their house,
Sure.
actually sitting down with them. So,
Sure.
yeah, yeah, that's.
Well, I think, some of the houses Commissioner Weekly's talking about has been on our demolition list before. And a majority of the commission listened to a song and dance, and a plea from the homeowners saying, please, I'm doing it. As soon as we gave them, take it off, of course, they did nothing. So hopefully those pleas will fall on deaf ears if they're repeat offenders. My question on code enforcement, and maybe you have done this, let's say you get a grass violation, 12 inches, whatever it is, and they see it on Thursday, maybe on Friday you send out the letter, they don't get it till Monday or Tuesday, then they have 7 days from that, so then it's, we're 2 weeks approximately from when you noticed it, and it could be up to 16 inches. And you go out, then you have to send them a second letter that you're going to take them to court. Then if they mow it the day before they come to court, then the problem's abated. Is that correct?
Grass and weeds we actually don't take to court. They get the one warning letter when we notice that it's over the 12 inches, and their deadline, they get the 7 days to mow it. If it's not abated by that time, it's put on our mowing list. So it is
It's put on your what?
our mowing list.
Okay.
That we have a contractor go and do it. So it is a little bit.
Okay, that's the first,
shorter.
and I agree. And the first time offense, people do it, it goes about a 2-week process before it can get mowed. So neighbors in the neighborhood has to look at the junk for probably close to a month by the time it gets there.
Sure.
Now, in subsequent ones, if property A has that mowing that you had to do, can we do something, we probably have to check the city attorney, that we can just send the mower out there the next time and mow it, not go through this 2
And we
week.
do. We do.
Okay, it can go
Yes.
almost immediately.
Yep,
Good.
the letter that they receive, it clearly states, this is your one warning for the season. You will not receive other warnings.
And we go
So-
out and mow it, and
Yes.
and have there been quite a few properties that you've gone out and mowed it at the opportune time, or is it?
Yes, we do. We have
Good.
a number that have multiple mowings on them. And even if we send a letter, they get their one warning letter and say they mow at that time, they've still got their one warning. And so if our code enforcement officers notice it 3 weeks later that they haven't mowed it again, they go straight onto our mowing list because
And
they got
how
that
long?
one
And
warning.
if when the code enforcement officer sees this property hasn't been mowed, they've had a warning letter, so therefore it goes on the mowing list. From that day, the code enforcement officer tells you, your office, this one's on the mowing list. How long before it's mowed?
We send out our mowing contracts every Friday. So if it's noticed between the previous Friday and that Thursday, then it goes on the contract on Friday. And the mowers, our contractors are pretty good. They like to get their work done and get their invoice in so they can get paid. And so they usually take care of things that weekend or within the first couple days of the week. So it's
Do you mail them out on Friday?
the
The
con-
contract, or you call them and say,
they actually come into our office and pick it up.
okay, so it does work quick.
Yep.
Now, on violators that have gone to court, thanks, and many of them are serial violators too, and we go through this process, and it's a couple-month process. Once they've been to court, is it true that for the next year or 2 years, if they have another violation, you don't have to notify them, it goes immediately back to court?
Only if the judge puts them on probation.
Okay.
And what Attorney Dawson has told us that we can do is, we do have a lot of those repeat offenders where we'll take them to court and they'll clean it up, and then as soon as they get back to their house, they start accumulating more junk or whatever the problem may be. And so we have a number of those. And so what Attorney Dawson has told us is that we can keep those cases open for monitoring. And so even if they've been to court and the judge has abated it, we can still have that case open, so that if our code enforcement officer notices that the problem has come back again fairly quickly, we can just go ahead and file that in court again instead of necessarily having to start all the way back at the beginning
Good,
with the
yeah.
letter.
Looking at
So-
anything to
Eliminates
speed
all
this
the time.
process up.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people are gaming the system.
Well,
Yeah.
and
they're just
and a lot
serial
of it's
junkers.
their lifestyle. You're battling against their lifestyle,
Well,
and that's
just
it's
Live your
but it's-
lifestyle in the county.
Yeah, I know.
Not, yeah.
But
It is.
well, and Mark, one way
You got
I
the
think that
headlights
we
for
need to
tomorrow.
address rather than let the grass get 12 inches, maybe we need to lower the bar to 8 inches, because by the time you do go through that process, it is over 12 no matter what. So maybe we need to address some
That's not-
updates to the
I have
code
no problem with
enforcement. Like I
Yeah,
said,
12
that's,
inches is gonna go to head. It's gonna reseat itself at 12 inches.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's like,
but like I said, it's like, well, and I mean, it sounds like a silly thing, but if you start at 8, by the time they get out there, it's at 12, and either way, it's long.
and
but-
during the summer months, obviously, the days are longer. And I do believe you have so many code enforcement officers on a staggered duty roster that they'll work evenings,
Yep.
7 or 8 o'clock, because you see different violations, people parking, in
Yes.
the yards versus their driveways.
Yeah, we rotate them out on a real limited schedule just to get a few hours in the field on evenings and
Good,
weekends over
good.
the summer.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Public Works.
You brought the muscle, didn't you?
Educational opportunities.
This is like the old fire department days.
What's that?
This is like the old fire department days.
Yeah, I remember those.
Start with sewer, Mike.
All right. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, the sewer budget encompasses sewer plant, sewer collection system. There's also money that's spun out of that ends up in the stormwater program that we'll look at, I think, under Streets and Ed Davis. And I think as is fairly traditional, these budgets don't change too much. I know that we've been busy fixing things and repairing things and scurrying around trying to keep it all together. And that's, we've been able to do that through, I think, good budgeting over the years, maintain funds in the appropriate places and the appropriate amounts, have good reserves. Some good news, generally speaking, there's no new bad news from
Well, that's good.
I like that, how you put that.
and the treatment plant someday, we've talked about it, will need to be expanded or changed to a different type of treatment. We haven't heard much from the state on that. It hasn't gone away, but it's nothing that's happening immediately. Implementing all the new requirements from the EPA has been somewhat painful, but I think ultimately we end up with a better system. We've integrated a few things between our collection system, our building inspection system, and the way we keep records. the way we notify the public. Ultimately, I think we have a better presentation of what we do and how we do it when it comes to sewer overflows and things. It's been a little painful getting there, but I think it's manageable at the level that we're dealing with problems. New things that we're dealing with are whenever it rains hard, we get so much excess flow at the treatment plant. And I know we've been budgeted for this inflow and infiltration. We expect to do some flow monitoring next spring to see how effective we were in our basins that we've been working in. But our discussion at staff level is, we're taking care of some small stuff, but there's got to be something big out there that we're completely overlooking. And by using our maps and knowledge of the system, Chuck Staples, superintendent, and his workers, with our GIS people, we put together a little bit of a plan to go look for like the likely suspects of, is there like a big hole that we're overlooking, and a little bit of a systematic approach to that. Maybe we'll find something and maybe we won't, but we've also got a study to do some actual detailed flow monitoring on the big lines rather than little basins that we maybe bring to the CIP time to allocate some resources toward that, either late this year or into next year. So I would say it's an exciting time in the wastewater plant. We're doing a lot of interesting projects, solving some short-term and long-term problems. I think the budget is pretty benign. I don't know if Chuck had any comments on what we're doing and how we're doing it. If I left anything out.
No, not really. We're not changing a lot. There's a few changes, small changes here and there.
It does
so-
reflect a 3% rate increase, which is is that correct, Whitney? Which is our standard.
Right, I believe
It's an inflation.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you have more main breaks in the summer or the winter, in the spring or the winter?
It seemed to be related to rainfall.
What was your question? I'm sorry.
Main breaks.
Main breaks.
Oh, main breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was wondering, because it's an age system, with the colder weather on that, you probably notice some more, because it sometimes, when we're doing work on them, it blends in with the street, repairs and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
I
we
was just
probably
wondering.
see more with the high rains we're getting on the
Okay.
rainfall in May, June, and July now
Mhm.
than we have in the past.
It would be like foundations where you have the shrinking and swelling of the clay and stuff.
Mhm.
Right.
So when you have a dry spell and then a wet spell.
Yeah, you do see some shifts in that. Another thing you have is people that have poor service lines and they have root intrusion in the spring.
Yeah.
The trees they really interested in growing, and then it dries up as the summer goes along, and the roots will seek water where they can find it, and they'll continue to just get into the sewer line where the water is, and that creates a lot of problems. That's probably 70% of our calls is people have a sewer problem in their house, they call us, and we tell them to. And it's generally, a problem with some level of roots in their line, not our problem, which is fine.
Yeah, but you guys always come out and check the street just to make sure, and then, yeah. And then we have to take care of it ourselves.
And actually, that reminds me too, I need to send a citizen's thanks, and that he had one of those calls, and he called the city. He said that you guys were really good, really helpful. He was sad to hear it was his problem. And
They always are, yes.
But he said he wanted me to extend, compliments. He said, the staff were really helpful, very friendly, and, they made a bad situation for him much, much better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question on sewer treatment plant here. Total revenue is $44.2 million approximately. How much of that is mill rate? Is it all by charges on a water bill? Is
It's
any
all.
of this affected by the mill rate?
No general fund.
No.
This is no general fund whatsoever. It's all on my water bill, what we get from Fort Leavenworth
It's
and the very.
fees, yeah.
So,
Yes, sir.
if, for example, you needed another couple $100,000, as we've done before, we have authorized, we authorized a raise on, our water bills, for the sewer.
Yes,
Okay,
and
this has nothing to do with general, with obviously no rate property taxes, they have the Lorem taxes.
That's
what-
correct.
It's funded completely separately.
Yeah, you may see the term revenue fund in some of the literature. This is a revenue fund in that
You're right.
it has its own revenue, rather than, say, a tax fund.
Right.
We don't have any major equipment needs. We've done a lot of upgrades to existing equipment. Chuck has a pretty good view on some things. I think the roof was in this year's, in the process of rebidding that roof that we looked at earlier in the spring. There's some things with the pumps to make them more efficient with variable speed. Addresses a lot of on-off things with the light bulbs. Light bulbs are getting installed. They may be all the way installed at this point.
They should be, the entire channel should be finished by next Friday at the latest.
Those are the
480
most expensive
lamps.
light bulbs in history.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But they work really good.
Yeah, I hope so.
yeah.
Yeah, we send out some clean water.
Yes, we do.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Streets?
We're done.
Okay. Thank you.
Come on up, Ed.
You should be a very busy man right now.
Oh, we are. It's all the time.
I've been getting like, what are they doing over there and there? I said, that's good.
Years ago, the streets division operation was primarily considered a revenue fund with money from special fuels and transfers from the state and stuff, but that has essentially gone away over the last 20-something years, and it's now primarily a general fund project, and so it's a tax fund. But Ed Davis is superintendent. We have, he's over a considerable part of the empire between streets, refuse collection, operation of the service center, operation of the central garage, and then the storm sewer component that we talked about. And then this year, with the good staff in engineering, we've tried to do a lot more integration of getting the streets department, streets division to do work in advance of the mill and overlay or the chip seal program. So Ed's been real busy this year.
Yeah.
Found a whole new list of things to work on besides the things he normally works on, and then we save up for the most important parts of the year. The things that we try to do super exceptionally well are snow removal, and of course leaf collection thing is rolling around again, and it's just around the corner in November. So throw all that in and reducing all the temporary help and the number of people's down over the years. I don't see much of Eddie's out working. The changes, if I recall, in the budget was there was a slight increase for asphalt that we used. I don't know if that made the final cut. I had it marked, but I can't remember what I marked in here. But that is indicative of what we've asked them to do, repair streets with potholes and patch this and patch that and get out in front of the overlay, do some work for us, and that uses the asphalt. We rent a roller that kind of helps. You have to focus all your work in the early part of the year, which creates, later in the year when you don't have the resources for asphalt, you get a lot of pressure to try to do something with nothing on repairing this or repairing that. So that additional funds have really helped that. And I think the last couple of years we've been able to find additional resources when we've asked the commission, and we appreciate that. That's kind of the short version of the streets. I don't know, Ed, do you have things you want to add into the?
Not really, other than we have hired a lot of skilled operators here in the past 2 or 3 years, which is able to just cost us material to do some of the work that we used to contract out. So that's been a plus for us. We get a lot more work done and with more money other than having to contract it out. So, but we're busy all the time. We really got our hands full now. So what amount of staff we got, we going from trees to asphalt back to trees, and then take, like Mike was saying, going on to be in front of the overlay programs that they're having. So there's no downtime for our guys, so we steady got to hump it. So
I'm sure you're aware of, excuse me, Nancy, 4th and Shawnee, northeast corner in the traffic lane, there's a gigantic
Potholes
jet
and
or
grow.
pothole
Yeah,
there about,
I was gonna let him know
about
about
4 inches, 5 inches deep in the center, and it can wipe somebody's tire out.
Okay.
So
we'll get that taken care of first thing in the morning.
How's the Henry Leavenworth project going back behind there?
Oh, that's actually not Ed's, but it's
Yeah.
Oh,
going,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
that's a contract project with Lexico.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
And it's going well. They've been trying to dodge the rainstorms and avoid, says they could have torn out all the pavement and then let it rain for on and off for
Yeah.
a week and annoy the neighbors, so they've chosen to not do that. But this forecast coming up shows no rain for most of next week, and that's when they're going to plan to get in and remove that existing pavement, get the road widened back out, and get it set up for paving, so, and that's going well.
Still on schedule before school starts?
They,
Starts at the main-
yeah, they've told me they are, and I have no reason to think any differently.
what Greg promised us.
Yeah, he did.
It's Greg.
But
Yeah.
we put some meat in the promise, didn't we? And if he doesn't, there's a,
There's
Yeah.
there's a trip to Cuba or something.
yeah,
Some pretty heavy daily damages too.
yeah.
Yeah, there's I think it's $2,500 a day or some crazy number, because there was a lot of pressure to get that job done this summer, and we fully expect to get it done.
Good.
All right.
There's,
Garage.
let's say if you want to talk traffic control, or there's some of the other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Traffic control is also under Ed. There's essentially, we have one man and his equipment takes care of about 50 signalized intersections, coordinates some of the striping and the signing and stuff. It's another busy little operation. In the past, we've been able to use some inmate labor or some temporary labor to help with some of the nitty-gritty details, but he tries to keep pretty busy. We try to keep our equipment up. The new truck we got, a couple years ago, seems to have made a huge difference in reliability and effectiveness and getting the tools he needs where he needs to be to get it done. But it is, sometimes, I go to places and I say, we've got 50 intersections and one employee to deal with, and they just shake their head.
yeah.
They don't know how we do it. But we do have a couple other people in the city that have some skills if push comes to shove, or I need a different set of opinions. We've got 2 other employees that have some skills in that area, along with Ed's knowledge as well. So we can try to keep up with it.
Mike,
Does Dave make all the signs too still?
Yes.
And he makes all the signs in the city as well.
No, okay.
on some of the, I've been at some of the downtown traffic lights, they've got the numbers counting down before the light changes
Right.
for the walking sign. Some of them have them that are newer and some don't. I've been asked, are we trying to slowly convert to all of them having that, or is it gonna be a mixture of it?
I think you'll see a mixture for a while. That's the direction that a lot of
It's
them
really nice.
are going, and people really find it helpful.
Yeah.
We have a
There's
lot
not,
of elderly
yeah,
people who live down here.
yeah, it kind of gives you a set of confidence that something's going to happen in 8, 7, 6 seconds.
You're gonna get hit if you don't get it.
So you'll see more of those. It was interesting, one of the communities in the county south of us, we can't talk about, changed a lot of their signals to those counting ones, and they had essentially a truckload of fairly new non-counting ones, and we were able to get that from, I think they gave it to us,
Uh-huh.
because they didn't
Wow,
want
that's good.
it. So we're kind of living off that for a while.
Okay, and actually, I think people like that they count down, yeah, they do.
You'll
They
see
like that they
more of
count
that,
down,
the
yeah.
new
When
stuff.
they
And
count
kept
down, it's
people-
for walking, it's not for,
It's for walking.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but
But
when you're driving it,
when
you
you're
know.
driving, you know exactly how long you've got to get through
Through
there
that
on that
intersection.
yellow light before it turns
Yeah.
red.
So, I mean, when that
1.5
counts down,
seconds. I can
it's
make
yellow.
I can make it.
Yeah, you're only 2 blocks away.
I know, really, but yeah, but no,
Yeah, but for especially the people that live downtown, it's
it
really
is,
great.
it's,
So, yeah, we expect you'll see more of them over time, the new signals will have that type of technology in it.
I know I talked to you, emailed you earlier this week about, you know, the flashing lights.
Right.
North, south on 7th and 6th, 7th and 4th. And I think there is a discrepancy between what we said and what you reported, and someone came out back and said, well, they're not those hours, because somebody checked on your.
Yeah, Ed had reported.
And I don't know if it changed because somebody didn't make the change when we went to daylight savings or something.
I suspect that's.
And that could be it.
I think that's part of the problem. So
Yeah.
we'll get those tuned up to what the commission wanted them to be,
Yeah. And
which I think is 10 p.m. on
Yeah.
flash and 7
AM
a.m. off
off flash.
flash on
On 4th.
Street.
Yeah.
So I think it's
And
coming
on
off
7th.
Right,
Yeah.
we were the same. And I think they ended up at 6 o'clock or something.
Yeah, on 4th and shutting off at 6 a.m.
Stormwater was the next section. This is funded from the wastewater fund. It is, we have 2 employees, a truck and some equipment, and they kind of share equipment with streets and share supervision with streets. And they can, you know, kind of help each other there to some extent. We've been putting them through somewhat of their paces the last year with the EPA. We've got to document how many things they actually do, how many inlets have they physically looked at, how many inlets have we fixed, what have they done to make the stormwater system better. And so Ed and his staff have been working to make sure that happens. We're also trying to find the right kind of training, so it's not just like, you know, look, there's an inlet. You say, well, is there any like green ooze coming out of the wall, or does that look like there's anything else? Does it look like someone's been dumping illegal materials in their backyards from where I'm looking at the inlet to try to kind of broaden their information gathering, if you will. And they work closely with the GIS to make sure that where we think the storm sewers are is where they actually are in the mapping. It gets better every week, basically, when we update information. They do rebuild inlets. They do a few a year. They're depending on the talents of the employees we actually have. They fairly skilled people have been there. They can do amazing things given a good set of tools. So,
For streets, and I'm assuming how you've put them together, how many employees do you have totally?
I think we got like 11, but that's two of them out of the 11 is sweeper operators.
does that include the storm sewer?
That don't include the storm sewer guys.
So with the storm sewer and sweepers, it'd be 13.
Yeah, 13.
A couple other things that float in there under Ed is garage. You want to move on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Move on to garage. The garage is kind of what they call an internal services fund, I think, is the name for that, where they perform work for the other entities within the city and essentially bill out their services. In theory, they mark up their time, they mark up their parts, and they also operate the fueling station. We have unleaded and diesel, and the revenue that comes from that shows back up in the garage budget as revenue, and it should come pretty close to supporting itself. It's kind of varied over the years. We're having some difficulties. We lost our senior mechanic down there earlier this year, and we're having a difficult time finding a good replacement. So that kind of knocks down the number of hours you have to build stuff out. So you end up having to contract out more work, and that impacts some of your stuff. But we do have one fellow that we've been negotiating. We need to follow up with him here pretty quick, see if he's going to come or not.
Okay. If not, let me know. I can get you a couple of guys.
Okay, thank you, sir. But they, once again, you end up with some fairly talented people that seem to be able to work on just about anything. We work closely with the police department, the fire department, to make sure their equipment is maintained the way they expect it to. if there are differences, they bring them to Ed and say, yes, they're going to do this, or no, we don't need to do that, if, that sort of thing. We have, we upgraded kind of the technology end of it a couple of years ago. Got all the mechanics, they finally got a separate little workstation, they can look stuff up on the computer or the internet, but they need to while they're actually working on the equipment, which I think has really helped. We tried to make sure they have the right tools to do the right job, and we bought a few things like the tire changers and a couple other things over the last 2 or 3 years. Little things that mean a lot, because it's not an air-conditioned space. And in the winter, it doesn't matter where it's heated or not when you're crawling around under a truck dropping icy water on the back of your neck. It's nice to know that you've got the equipment you need to get you the job done. Anything else on the garage?
How many mechanics you run out there now, total?
We run
Yeah.
2 and a master mechanic. Right now, we just got 2 and a parts clerk. And I got the parts clerk kind of overseeing it somewhat to make sure things are getting done as things are coming in for repairs.
So is the master mechanic like a foreman, or is he a working foreman?
He's more or less, he's both. He's kind of like a working foreman.
And the software that we bought a number of years ago to consolidate parts ordering and the billing and stuff has really been able to improve the work of one of the clerks up front was technically a refuse and a garage clerk, and it turns out that with the software that more of her time is now spent dealing with refuse. Perhaps it was 50-50 for several years, and we've shifted that burden, I think 75% refuse and 25%, because it comes from the garage portion. The work's 90% done with the bills.
Are the mechanics do they have to do the same technical certification that a private entity would have?
Yeah.
So
We
would that
expect-
be- Because I know our trucks and things are probably more specialized though.
Yeah, they do take classes every year, and we do have, they are ASE certified certifications. So
Service center. There are no other questions on the garage. Service center, the other things that Ed gets to do in his spare time is the service center property at 790 Thornton. He's kind of like the landlord. This budget is under Ed, and it's the building maintenance budget. It's takes the heating and the cooling and the repairing, and something breaks and you get a broken window, that sort of thing. That all comes under the service center budget. It's a place to accumulate costs for your electric and your gas and that sort of thing. We used to have a person in this budget that was kind of the general gopher, if you will. If any of the city departments needed something picked up or delivered physically, that was a good thing to do, and everyone felt it was a worthy investment. But as times were tough here a few years ago, and he retired, that position was dropped from the budget. So there's actually there's no people here, I don't believe, anymore. But it is where we accumulate the costs for operating the building and the grounds and fixing the gate and all that sort of thing.
So when you're looking at personnel expenses, is that really shared then with another area?
Is that where
Is that recycle?
Becky is, or who's the other one down there? Do they get paid out of the service center? Sue?
yeah, Sue does.
Yeah, transfer over from another fund and then paid out of there, the front people.
So it's fairly limited,
Yeah,
but it
transfers
does.
from the street.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
But it's pretty useful setup. You've got to have somebody in charge, and when we set this up in the 90s, it was operations superintendent got to be in charge of the building, and we haven't changed that. And it always has a few things that we need to look at for roof leaks or fence repairs here and there, and we bring those to you.
So it looks like your estimated expenses are down.
Yeah. refuse is under Ed, but Curtis has been, you know, he's the
He was out there in the hall.
We can wake him up and come in. The refuse collection is,
Early, yeah.
you know, we're a little, we
got
got
ahead,
caught up.
that's good.
We do our best. The refuse collection is, I won't say it's unchanged because things are nowhere near the same today as they were 30 years ago when I got here, but I think the citizens' view of what we do with refuse collection has not changed. It's still pretty much top of the heap. If they have questions, they know who to call. And almost every instance, if you put it out and you got anything that resembles a current account, we're going to pick it up. And if we miss it, we'll come get it.
Great, I mean, we've got a really good system here.
Yeah, I hear more compliments on
Yeah,
I do too, yeah.
good trash service.
It's still, the numbers are essentially what, on the order of 10,000 residences picked up once a week, thrown in the back of the truck. Currently, we take it to the transfer station, drop it off there and go back and get some more. In the summer, it gets pretty hot and pretty humid, and you're throwing a lot of heavy bags of grass in there in May and June, and come October, November, or even December, January, you can get right frigid, and they're still thrown at the back of the truck. We also operate a recycling operation and a brush disposal operation. They're both kind of a part-time. The recycling thing is Saturdays, 9 to 1 or something.
8:30, 12:30.
8:30, 12:30. And you bring it in, you drop it off, and the city takes it away, and we sell it if we can, or we get it to somebody to deal with. If they're not paying for it, at least it's getting recycled, sort of thing. And some of over the years, the revenue varies a lot. When the economy was just terrible, the price of cardboard was way up because people that needed cardboard for recycling, there was nothing going on in the economy, so if you had cardboard, it was a premium. But now the economy's a little better, cardboard's down. It's kind of counterintuitive. And the brush site, we operate in the summer and then right after Christmas to drop off your Christmas trees. But if it's less than 12 inches in diameter and it's wood, like a brush or tree, bring it onto the brush site. We have very affordable rates. You get it in, drop it off, and away you go. That's been a real popular service. A number of years ago, it was a problem. It was kind of the honor system. You'd come to the service center and they'd give you a key and you'd say what you were going to bring. And you go out there, supervisor, like the next week, and where did all this stuff that's not appropriate come from? So we chase them down and we try to get it fixed. Well, that was a fine plan until the state inspector came by and said, this is not just inappropriate, it's just like illegal, and we're going to take your permit away, which was the impetus to structure it the way we have it today, because it is a service the public finds very, very valuable to them. We take your grass for free, we take your leaves for free. Curtis runs a composting operation out there, and if we have compost and you have a need for compost, it's free too.
Really? I didn't know that.
I mean, I get truckloads of compost out and put it,
That's great. I
patch in my yard.
think we need to promote that one.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's
Yeah,
usually,
they'll run the Bobcat and load it on the back of your truck.
Yeah.
Is it, I know, the thought of just filling your truck with compost,
Well, it's
you can tell I'm not a
dirt.
gardener.
It's basically topsoil when you dig
Is
it
it
out.
really? Yeah.
I mean,
So probably my visions aren't accurate, but it's
no,
just.
I mean, if they rotate it enough that when you get it, you're basically getting topsoil.
Dirt, huh?
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing. We have one employee out there, and he takes it pretty personal to keep it looking good.
Yeah.
Keeps everything all stirred up, and keeps order and the comings and goings of the folk. It's really been pretty non-dramatic for so long you kind of forget about it. But there were some changes in the budget with whether we can or can't burn the accumulated piles. You have to call in a big giant shredder to shred them up. And once again, when the economy was tough, they were willing to work really, really cheap. But now that the economy's better, they don't work nearly so cheap, so they cost a lot more to get them in. And so we do try to burn, and if the wind's blowing the right way when you burn, that works really, really good because it all blows into Missouri. But when it doesn't blow into, doesn't blow into.
Just remember, this is televised, yeah.
Not in Missouri, though.
So
Yeah, we share with our neighboring states.
Yes, yeah.
So that's the kind of the short version of what we do with refuse. I don't know, Curtis, if you've got other highlights that you want to.
No, I think you pretty well hit on everything. We also have a wood chip at the brush pile, at the brush site as well, besides compost.
That's, I don't have a pickup, but I can bring some
Yeah,
buckets.
and we offer firewood as well. So we have firewood that's cut up and it's ready to be picked up for free.
That's awesome.
For collections, how many employees do you have now?
10 full-time permanent and then 1 temporary for collection.
So what do you have, 3 trucks going per day for trash?
Monday through Wednesday, we run 3 trucks. Thursday, we run 4.
Okay, and just on average, now, different time of year, how many trips to the transfer station do they make per day?
Probably, on average, probably 6, sometimes up
Each
to 8.
truck has to go that?
Well, 2 for each truck and then
That's what I
2
mean.
trips per truck.
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
so a truck goes till noon or something, and they have to go dump, they come back,
Right,
and then
right.
they do it.
Absolutely.
I was just curious how much that before.
It was interesting, just as a side, we did the international officers welcome, and usually they never ask like a trash pickup, but it's just one officer asked, why do you only pick up trash like once a week? So there are higher expectations out there. I forget what country he was from.
Well,
but
I'm thinking the way he asked that question, I didn't want to jump in, I don't think he knew about trash bags.
Well, my officer asked
Oh,
that too, but
right,
it's like,
yeah.
not trash pickup. I think the way that some of them do it is they have the big dumpsters and they put, like you would with apartments.
large apartments,
And
yeah.
in a lot of these countries, they don't have their own house.
Yeah.
They all live in apartments, so they put them in the big dumpster
Yeah,
and they put them out every day. So I think that was kind
yeah.
of,
Nor do they have
He's
garbage
looking
disposal.
for the large
So the
central.
garbage is the-
Yeah.
right,
But-
so anyway, I didn't fault him for that. I think
We'll
that's
remind them
how they-
sometimes we also pick up appliances. Well, we always pick up appliances on Friday, large metal items. So it's really twice a week, depending on what you have.
Yeah, somebody puts out a washing machine, because I saw one.
Right, washer, refrigerator, large
They
metal
get
desk.
picked up before Friday.
They don't last till Friday most of the
Yeah,
time.
That's another story.
I do things like that, I like putting it out, and
Just have
I
all those
enjoy it when
Santa's
somebody steals
helpers
it.
out there.
Yeah, I put 2 lawnmowers out there last year, riders, that I gave up on before I bought a new one. And before I got back up to my garage, I heard the tires
They're
squealing.
gone.
They were out there loading
Yeah.
them up.
Yeah.
Another thing that refuse has helped out with is over the years, work with the wastewater treatment plant on hauling off the grit and not the sludge, but primarily the bar screenings and the grit. And Curtis was able to, several years ago, convince me that we needed a roll-off capacity to be able to kind of run our own little fleet of roll-off containers. And of all the brilliant suggestions that weren't mine, that's just right at the right at the top of the list of useful things that has come up from the workforce. And we are looking at making even more changes out at the treatment plant. We'll let them haul the grit directly instead of mixing it into dumping it at the back of the regular trash truck. If we use the roll-offs to haul the grit in a dumpster, it saves even more steps for both refuse collection and treatment plant people. So it's been a real positive transformation of the things that we do.
Yeah, you're about to get really, really busy with all this rain we've been having too for the,
Grass is back.
yeah,
Grass
grass
is
and,
back.
yeah, well, and also the tree limbs, oh my.
Oh, yeah.
It's been an active,
Yeah.
it's been you can tell it's been an active spring for that, my yard alone.
Yeah, that and the grass is in the street.
I know, it's,
I just cannot get over it.
What's
Yeah.
that?
Well, the people cut their grass, their first round, they blow it out into the street. You know,
Yeah, I hear complaints
put your
about
brain in
that.
gear when you light your mower up and turn the mower around and blow it back in your yard.
I hear people complain
Just-
about that in public.
Well, what gets me is not necessarily the looks, it's what it does to our sewer system.
Right, right.
Yeah, it's hard on water quality. And can clog it up, cause flooding and things. I realized I left one thing out, was our landfill in Lansing, surrounded by Lansing. It's
yeah.
actually inside the city limits of Leavenworth, surrounded by Lansing, south of Gillen Road. That's still our landfill. We still have responsibilities to maintain it. Curtis is one that kind of takes care of making sure that happens. We mow all the grass once a month for 6 months.
Right, that's correct.
And that's gone really well. We have the Model Airplane Club. They're on top of the landfill, and they've kind of expanded their empire somewhat, so they mow even more grass than
They
they
take
used to.
good care of it.
Yeah, they were taking a
Yeah.
pretty good hunk out of that anyway.
Right. We have had a couple of issues that we've had to do maintenance on. We had one of the monitoring wells was picking up groundwater or the water from the creek on the east side, so we had to relocate it so it was truly sampling groundwater and not getting flooded out from the creek. And there was some erosion that the state wanted us to take care of. We awarded that contract here a few weeks ago, and they should be starting, and it'll take about 2 weeks, and they should be done. So Curtis keeps me up to date on all of that. It's another one of those things that it's a no drama, not like it used to be out there. And appreciate, and that gets back to, there's a refuse restricted fund after disposal here that is kind of the reserve. The state requires you have money set aside for maintaining a landfill, and that's what that's for. And it lets us pull out of there for projects that we know we have and projects that show up unexpectedly.
And there's no statute of limitations on that too. We have that forever.
There's like a 20-year
Yeah.
horizon, but I fully expect that at the end of 20 years, there'll be another 20 years right after it. So essentially, it's ours forever.
Okay. You want to go into engineering? Is that next?
Sure.
All right.
Thank you,
Commissioner.
Curtis.
Thanks.
All right, engineering. Go on up, Mike. You can't- It has been a blessing to have a full staff for almost a year now. I know we lost some key people when they retired, but we've got some very talented people that have been promoted and that we've hired back in. I think you've seen most of them at a meeting or two along the way, and they certainly bring a little different look to what's important upstairs, because they're not the previous people, so it's been kind of nice. But it is a totally no drama budget this year. Fully staffed. I don't see any changes coming up. We are implementing a variety of new programs, primarily related to the whole EPA thing, with inspections of the silt and dirt and management runoff from construction sites, better coordination with wastewater and building inspection, and engineering folk on sanitary sewer overflows, not just getting them cleaned up and getting them reported, but finding out why do we think they're happening, and is there a way we can do something with them. We try to address some of them if we can, and that I project we put out, say if we replace this piece of line, we might solve this type of problem, and try to get some of that stuff worked in there to reduce the number of overflows that occur in the city from time to time. Mike Hooper's been deputy director since Bob Patswell retired, and he's been working hard. It's been an extremely busy year with the projects that we've got out. Everything's torn up, so he's kind of working with our field guys as well as operations. Ed Davis, making sure that it's coordinated. Even though I have other employees that try to work with this, you got to have somebody run interference sometimes, and Mike does that for me while I'm taking care of other business. Engineering, we don't need to buy any plotters, printers, software.
Got all that fine stuff last year.
Yeah, we got
Or
all
this
that.
year.
Yeah, purchasing it this year, so that from the engineering end of things, there's nothing spectacular in this budget
Good.
at all. Inspections, well, we got building and grounds and the library and some other stuff. And that's mostly Hal's the really smart one on that, and Hal and Mike have worked together. Hal Wharton is not here. But the same thing with inspections, and our Mansell King, our plumbing inspector, retired, and we hired Mark Kramer as our plumbing inspector, and he's been very good. He takes the stuff seriously that needs to be taken seriously, working with all the group I just talked about on this sanitary sewer overflow thing. Getting the importance of this reflected back to the contractors and the plumbers, and say, you know, this is important. We're not trying to tell you how to do your job, but you got to remember, you got to report this, or you got to tell us about that. And one of the things that he's taken and kind of moved it up to the next level is a grease trap inspection program. That was on our list of things we were already doing when the EPA came around, but we weren't doing it very aggressively. And Mark's worked with the staff, particularly with Cassidy up there with this whole Munis thing and integrating all it together. I think using the software that we have and the resources that we have is we're making some pretty good progress on the grease trap. And truth be told, we send a lot of letters out, and sometimes when if they send us copies of your records of your monthly inspections, you get something back that, gee, it all looks like the same guy filled it out at the same time with the same pen. But not that would ever happen, but it certainly has increased the awareness of that it's important, and we do follow up with some limited inspections. And once again, you stress the importance about what we're doing and why. And I believe it's made a difference also. Hal will tell you that residential permits, I think before the Great Recession, we were, 40, 50, 60 a year. Even when it was really terrible everywhere, we were still running 10 or 15 a year until things got better. Then we went to 1 year we had none.
Yeah, that was a painful blow.
That was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
2 years ago.
We had one year, I think.
Yeah, but it's been really sad
Yeah,
since.
but it's creeping up. I think we're up double digits already this year, and moving forward. But the remodeling's been pretty strong, and commercial and industrial type permits have been pretty good. There's some big projects at St. Mary University. You got a couple of hotels that we've been dealing with, and 2 more coming.
Cereal Ingredient, Great Western,
Some pretty big projects that
I like it when we get to the point you come in and say you need another inspector.
well, I could tell you that today, but I couldn't justify it.
You wouldn't get it today.
Yeah,
But I look forward to that. I think we have some very developable property on the edges of our community that I think you'll see something will happen, and we'll get a big push. But I'm sad to say there are no subdivision preliminary plans in here. It is all infill. Everything we're seeing, building permits for on residential. It's all existing lots and existing subdivisions.
Until we
Yeah,
punch
I've been-
Muncie through to 20th, I don't think we will see any.
No.
Right.
And I've been looking at the list that Paul sends us, and most of it are any type of addition or in-house repairs, and every once in a while you'll see for a new construction house on there and that, but still it's not anywhere where it used to be.
Yeah, well, we thought things were going to be great when stuff started turning around, but they
been
disappeared.
That's been the slowest, I know, slowest thing to recover from.
What do you think we'll see equipment down at 3rd and Delaware?
I ask every day, and we have reviewed the plans. We have communicated that back to them. They've come in and picked up there's some sort of a site grading permit, which we let them put the fence up, and they've making arrangements with the utilities for temporary power. I
just
don't know.
I know,
We had some mud on the street the other day. I said, well, kindly call on and tell them to come clean it up. I don't know if they did or not, but that's been the extent of our interaction. We are not holding up anything with them.
Wow.
They've got their permit and everything else
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
excited when I
not their
saw the
building
fence go
permit.
up.
Did they, I don't think.
Not the building permit, they're
Not
still,
the building permit.
The
yeah.
plans have been reviewed and approved, and the site plan, we've looked at it, they made some changes to it, it shouldn't be a problem, but I don't think they've actually picked up a construction permit other than one that let them kind of work on the site with the fence,
I know.
we called it
I-
grading
I-
permit
yeah,
or something.
I like you, I got excited when I saw the fence, I was like, oh, finally, and then,
I don't
Is it,
know.
I can't remember, is it gonna face south? The front entrance gonna face,
Face west.
Face
it is,
west,
isn't it?
I
Just
thought.
like the other one.
West,
I
yeah.
thought one time we were talking about facing the old,
It is
the
back in
landing.
that east corner though.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're gonna
Southeast corner.
tear down Second Street.
Mhm.
It's gonna be interesting. The stove factory project's kind of, I think, their main one's all wrapped up, but they're working on that other building. And,
It faces second. It just seems weird that the building would face second.
yeah, it just,
I know you,
Rather than Delaware,
yeah.
because all the others
yeah,
face Delaware.
so they know that, you know, I can go eat over there.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I know, it's, yeah,
Come on up, Al.
they've done
Yeah.
all the way, they have to
You can jump.
We've been sitting down here 45 minutes trying to get
We were just,
Yeah,
I was working
doesn't make any sense.
we were just kind of giving them the,
Facing the other way.
Look at downtown hotel, face
Right.
the business district. Yeah,
I don't-
I agree
I don't
with that,
understand it.
yeah.
It'll face Third Street.
Yeah, just
It'll
like
face
just
west.
like the Ramada, just like the Ramada.
Yeah, it's not gonna face the community center. It'll face west.
their main.
No, to me,
We
it
were
should,
wondering why it didn't
it
face
should
Delaware.
face, it
Just
should,
like all
Oh,
the
yeah.
other
it should face
buildings.
Delaware, like,
They wanted
Like
the
any other
front
city
to be
hotels.
seen as you're coming down Fourth, and with the buildings there, they thought it'd be better visibility. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what
only
they
if you're
said.
coming in
Yeah.
by plane, but hey, that's just my
Right.
opinion.
I don't know, I just thought, yeah, I figured that. Building
yeah.
a new building, it would face Delaware.
Yeah, and even for the aesthetic, I mean, when you look at any other downtown hotel in any big city, it faces the main,
Main
Yeah,
drag.
that's
Main
their
drag,
choice, and
so,
that's what they did.
yeah.
I mean, we.
so that, you know, you can walk out of the hotel and see where the restaurants are and stuff like that.
All right, I hope it looks nice.
But
That's
I
all
just,
can-
right now, at this point, I just want
So
them
maybe they're gonna
to
do
get a
some good,
permit
they're
and break
leaving
down.
room for another one.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
And we were just talking about the Equus, no news other than their fence.
No, I have not heard anything from them in about 3 weeks. We've
If it
sent
broke
off
the
plan
fence.
review comments, both civil and architectural. We've seen the civil come back, but we haven't seen any review comments on the architectural aspects.
Nothing major on them. Commenting on, kind of wrapped up a lot of big projects, Stove Factory, I think their big building's done, but they're working on their other building.
Yeah, they're still working on the building that had that partial collapse, but they seem to be making good progress in there. The rest of it's all looking pretty good down there.
Yeah, we're excited about grinders, kind of, they've got plans, I don't totally know what they all are, but they've bought a couple of other buildings in that block to
That's
to
great.
expand their entertainment options, so it's pretty exciting.
Did they displace those businesses there?
I
Not
don't
yet.
know.
Yeah, they're going west.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's Jennifer have a business there.
Yeah, she's just in front of one of their buildings, so they own that building.
Yeah.
But then,
if they
then
expand
you've
it.
got the little vacant lot, then you've got the old boat building,
Yeah, okay,
and they bought that, so.
yeah, okay.
So we think we'll see, strong, with the hotels that are coming, continuation, kind of the commercial side of things should be strong for at least another year, and hopefully we'll generate some more after that. Keep seeing a few ideas float around about Metropolitan or something.
Sound good.
Yeah.
How many single-family permits this year?
I checked this morning. They haven't all hit the budget yet, but we're up to 14 this year, which is
Okay.
concerning.
Well,
We
we
had
had
10
boom.
for the last 2 years.
Well, that's more
Better than
encouraging,
last
hey,
time.
yeah, that's, yeah.
But on the downside, just since we're here talking right now, the category on general remodeling is down by about $20,000 from what we projected.
Really?
Yeah, I'm
Or
surprised.
20,000 from last year, let's put it that way. But that can jump up quickly because that category takes all renovations as far as budget-wise, whether it's residential or commercial. So one big commercial project those numbers climb quickly.
Hal's also the go-to person on the library maintenance. I'd say Carnegie, but we don't have that anymore, thank you. And then, which is another project that's going fairly well.
Yeah, what's the status on that?
They're working up a storm. I haven't been.
Well, of course, they're doing a lot of site work. They got the new water line in. They just proposed a new stairwell for the second floor. I rejected that because I can't take a pencil sketch on something that scale. But they are in there actively working, so that's a good sign.
When do you think they'll be open?
Sidewalks all tore up, so.
Yeah. I really don't have any projections at this time, Mark.
If they get after it, and then this Fouch and Greenemeier and Jeremy or Caleb, when they make their minds up, they get a lot of work done in a short period of time. But I wouldn't count on it until late in the year at the earliest.
Yeah.
They always kind of got other things in the irons in the fire that they juggle their priorities.
It's on the tax rolls now.
Excuse me?
It's on the tax rolls
Yes,
now.
yes, it is.
Yeah, almost like after we voted.
Yeah.
Buildings and grounds budget is primarily city hall operations here, everything from the generator to the roof to fixing electrical problems, that sort of thing. It's pretty much about as boring budget as we can get. We've taken care of everything that you can think of that needs taken care of right now.
And you need a really boring budget for quite a while here.
Needed one, but
Yes, you do.
The
No
things
more
that-
excitement for this
Yeah.
building.
The money that we've invested in the basement with air conditioning and lighting has made it, transformed it into a much better place. If you haven't been down there in a few years, it's worth the trip through. I won't say it's certainly no palatial mansion, but it's a place we can store documents or things we don't need very often and not worry about them deteriorating.
I'd like to do that, yeah. The last time I've been down there, it wasn't pretty. So-
It's still full of a lot
Still
of
a
stuff.
lot of
Is it
stuff.
really?
But environmentally, it's in much better shape.
Okay, so you just set those expectations.
I think you're overselling it, Mike. There's nothing to see there.
Okay.
The outside of the building is maintained by the Parks Department, and I see they've kind of stepped their game up this year, and the grass is starting to come along and look pretty sure.
Yeah.
looks nice.
I do want to add the roof project from last year seems to,
Yeah, that's why
we
we
don't have the leaks around the perimeter of the second floor anymore.
budget for a while right here.
That's good.
That's not to say there aren't little things we have to take care of, but they're not related to the systemic problem on the roof. Let's see, what else?
You said the library?
Library's in here somewhere. As I go, I went right by it, sorry. Basically, similar to what we do at City Hall, we do that unless at the library primarily is the city owns the building. We're responsible for the day-to-day, they're responsible for day-to-day things, but building problems, if they got a roof problem or an HVAC problem, that sort of thing, that comes up to engineering, which means it's going to go to Hal. We do have a CIP project to address in a large scale their problems, and we've been working between the finance office with a couple of vendors on a solution that we review with city manager, bringing the commission here shortly. That I think will finally get us over that HVAC thing we keep talking about every year in the budget or CIP.
I was gonna ask if that was an HVAC thing.
It always is.
Yeah, no, you can tell it's bad when I was on the board and the librarians were sending me text messages and emails on it. It said, yes, we'll be working on it someday, just be patient.
But I think it looks to be a really good plan, takes advantage of some new technology that's out there that makes it more efficient and less costly, which is always good. And it's not so new that we're first, which is
It's been around a while.
yeah.
I'm I'm really interested in it. I think it's a very good program, or plan that we have going forward.
We did have a sewer pipe break with mezzanine that flooded part of the first floor this year that comes on our insurance, the city's building insurance for the building, and we've worked it out with the library on their settlement for their damage to their books and that sort of thing.
So you'll see like $10,000 basically on that.
Yeah,
part.
yeah, I don't know if it shows up in here, but
It doesn't
it
yet.
shows up somewhere. But it won't, we're not gonna budget for it next year. It shouldn't have.
Well, I want to add too, that 2016 was the first year really that
That's right.
the library had its own budget for maintenance. It used to be part of buildings and grounds, and we had building and ground, city building and ground, non-city. Now so the 15,000 is a number that Ron Hale came up with, and so we're still learning. We don't have a lot of history on how much
Yeah.
we actually spend over there. I mean, we could if we dug deeper. I know we spent at least, this says 6, I know we spent at least 10,000 over there in 2015, so.
Yeah, it's estimated this year at 15,000. So, but it's we work with the librarian and their staff, and we've kind of some of the issues in the past where who would call the repair person for what type of problem, created issues with our finance department on how come, where's the authorization for this
Right.
expense, that sort of thing.
Okay.
I think we're past that. I think we're
Everything, well, I can't say everything, but almost
Right.
everything flows through me,
Good.
and then I authorize contractors to go
Makes sense.
do any work.
Are we even like say carpeting and things like that? I mean, things that are actually attached to the building, that's our responsibility.
Yes.
That's CIP and stuff like that, okay.
We pay everything.
Like furniture and things like that, is that also ours or is
I don't
that
think-
theirs?
I don't think we do furniture.
in a
I think
long
that's on the
time.
library.
Yeah, they probably do that. Fixtures. furniture
Fixtures
Look-
is
This
just
is
bookshelves
part of the
and all
building.
that sort of
Anything that's
thing.
part of the building.
anything that's
Yeah.
structurally attached to the building, if I look at it that way, I'm pretty
Yes.
Yeah.
safe, okay.
Like the plumbing system, including all the fixtures are ours,
Yeah.
the electrical system, the
Like,
walls,
you
the
know, like
floor.
lighting fixtures and things like
Those
that.
are ours.
That's ours, okay, okay. Just a little confusing.
Yeah.
It is.
street
Airport.
Airport. Okay. Street lighting is another kind of a boring thing, but it is important because it's a lot of money that the
Yeah,
city
it is.
sends
Yes,
to
it
West Star
is.
every year for street lighting. And there for quite a while, we did not believe we were getting our money's worth from West Star. We had a lot of lights that were burnt out and they'd never get fixed, or if they got fixed, they weren't fixed right and they'd go back out. So we started inspecting them. Originally, we had street department do the inspections, but building inspection now does it, and Hal has a little thing. We go out every month and inspect different things, but the key thing, the collectors and arterials and downtown get inspected every month.
Yeah, and then we do 1/4 of the city each month, so we do
Right.
collectors arterial downtown every month, plus the northwest quarter of the city, and the next month it'll be the northeast quarter. And
And
Yeah, and I know that, Mike, I asked you about this before, but someone told me that the decorative streetlights that are in Delaware are like constantly on during the day.
yeah,
At least I went and checked that yesterday morning.
Is that, yeah,
They were not on.
okay,
The lighting is all controlled by, well, there's basically 3 sections of lighting on Delaware, and a third is controlled by just a lighting contractor in the 100 block of Delaware. I went and checked it yesterday, everything was working fine.
okay.
One photocell can be more sensitive than another. If it's a cloudy day, I wouldn't be
Okay.
surprised that, one of those heavy, dark overcasts, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't come on during the day.
Well, yesterday, I can imagine they went
Yeah.
on.
Right.
Yeah.
I can change
Okay.
photocells, and I have changed that one before, because I'd rather wait until I know for sure.
Yeah.
They're not expensive, but then again, usually when they fail, it's on 24/7. Yesterday
Okay.
morning when it was sunny, I went down and everything looked fine.
Okay.
Well, and I mean, the person that told me that, I mean, and I let some stretches of time, because when I drove down there, I didn't notice it, but and then, so I said, well, after the third time, she said, and then I said, well, you're gonna have to tell me which lights, and specifically like in front of the Heritage, because I was like,
And they
okay.
can call up to our office too, that way.
And that's what I had some, yeah.
If they'll call up and say that it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and that street light's on,
Yeah, well,
That's-
that's a problem, yeah, and
yeah,
that's just,
that way we can go look at it right
Okay.
then.
but if you, yeah, okay,
But
We'll keep an eye on it.
yeah.
So.
And on the West Star lights, they've been very responsive, and they've, a few years ago, smaller communities, they started changing all the street lights to LED, and that program's now here in Leavenworth. Basically, if they get a light that's reported as a problem, they just go change it,
And replace with an LED.
LED, and that's where their company's headed with their policy, and their, as we've seen in our streetlights, it saves them a whole boatload of money, or electricity, I guess, in their case.
Doesn't change our rates.
Yeah. So but it does reduce the number of outages, and I think that's been very effective. And as annoying as they can be, they have been responsive to our communications about the lights that are out. And another thing that's kind of out there, if you look at some of our street lighting poles, they're looking kind of raggedy.
Yeah,
And
especially in the downtown.
There was a time in the past that we were able to con them into painting them. I don't know if you remember that. They went through the whole town and painted them green.
Yeah.
They will never do that again. But they did say if we have any other ideas, they would be happy to talk to us about a cost sharing thing. And when they replaced the pole out here on the west side of City Hall, we've seen them at a few other places around town. It's one of these giant new fiberglass poles with an LED light on it, and it looks really good.
Okay.
So take a look at
Because
that.
some of them were rusted, that they were kind
Right,
of
the
getting
paint's,
dangerous, yeah.
paint's peeling and stuff, that was a big deal. We have completed the transition on our streetlights. The streetlights that are on the traffic signals, they got a little arm that comes out and it's got a light, changed all those to LEDs a number of years ago. We just finished up 20th
We
Street,
finish up 20th
Yeah.
Street this year.
and the only ones we got left are Arbor Way maybe, or something, we're trying to figure out. Arbor Way and perhaps the streetscape lights on Delaware if we want to put together. They're a little different duck, but there's an opportunity to take one more whack at the LED conversions on street lighting.
On 20th, we finally get the electrical problems figured out, taken care of, because there for a while, we had a section on, section off, section on, section off.
Yeah, we've finally, I think, got the one down there at Casey's wire pulled back through the conduit. I'm not aware of any sections out.
I haven't seen any recently. I mean, typically, once we start seeing any construction along the side of 20th Street, that wire is so susceptible to being damaged. I would hope with the LEDs out there, the actual, electrical draw on
Yeah,
those conductors
yes.
is much less. And it still doesn't mean if it gets damaged during excavation, it's still gonna go
Well, how
bad.
deep is that wire? And it's not encased in anything?
No, it's direct
That
burial.
was the worst, $300,000 I ever saved the city of Leavenworth. We let them change the specification to conduit with wire in it to a direct bury armored cable. Bad.
So it's what, about a foot deep?
No, it's still 24, 28 inches or whatever it's supposed to be, but it is just, that cable does not hold up over time.
Gets
It-
stretched and everything else when it gets
Yes.
pulled in there.
Yeah, the
Well,
little
the
rocks.
conditions of the soil out there too,
Yeah.
I mean,
So, even though that was on when we were building the 20th Street project in 95 and 96, that was, costs were getting up there. That was one of the things they brought for consideration to reduce costs. And it seemed like a good idea at the time, but we paid the price for it ever since. So that, I think we've got everything on now. If we don't, please let us know. We'll go figure it
I
out.
know we have one that's causing a problem, but that's one individual. We're not talking an entire circuit.
Yeah, and it's an old strand.
Right.
All right. Airport?
Airport. No, you can't leave. You know all about the airport.
I do I? Oh, God.
The airport, which I won't say it runs itself, but you've got Dean Ayers.
I was wondering if he was still there.
He's still there. That's the, if you look at the professional services line item there, that's Dean. And the budget for the airport basically supports we pay the utilities, we pay Dean as the FBO to run the place. We have had some expenses with sewer problems up there lately that Hal worked on to get them back up and operational. That's something that we may want to look at, and I know Dean was just in the other day. He's got dreams of expansion up there. I said, send me a sketch and we'll get serious about it, but I haven't seen
Do
that.
they have a lot of traffic out of there anymore?
He says they're busier than they've ever been right now.
Really?
Yeah. He
I
says
haven't been up there for a long time, and when I had a plane up there, we were busy all the time, and then all of a sudden, when the fort closed out there, just everybody left. And
He
and I
said-
moved my plane too.
He said they've got so much flight instruction going on right now that instructors are tripping over each
Oh,
other. They don't
good.
have any room for, so that's he's looking at building like a 30 by 30 building primarily for instruction.
Mhm.
And I said, we'll see what happens. But he said he and the Army are getting along fine.
Yeah.
He says the gate issue, they seem to have resolved whatever difference they had about the gate and how the people that have planes can get on the fort to go get to their planes, or the people. At one point in the past, there was a problem with people landing at the fort, getting in their rental car and leaving to come to town to take care of business, and not being able to
Not
get
being
back
back on.
back on because
Yeah.
they didn't have the proper identification and stuff.
Right.
And he's worked through that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a problem when I had mine.
So I don't know any more on the airport, but the sewer.
It has a private lift station up there that failed earlier this year. The pump just went bad, so we had to replace the pump, and then we kind of secured the walls of the containment area while we were there. The contractor said it really was about ready to collapse, so it was. I wouldn't call it routine maintenance. Hopefully, we don't have to look at it for quite a few years again.
So as far as we know, everything's up and running. I don't have any issues I'm aware of.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Let's take about 10 before we get into wrap up.
Thanks, Hal.